Okay, before you start section 9.9, right? There are a couple of things. I mean, if you from now on, right? If you want to like follow even my lectures, right? Anything, um, you know, yeah, I want you to do a couple of things, right? Every time you start a new homework assignment, or if you start following my lectures and etc., right? There are a couple of things that I want you to do because you may have an issue, right? Even though you follow all the steps that's shown in the video lectures, right? The couple of yeah. So the first thing is you make sure that you clear the environment, right? So that you see that. So when you click this link, I mean this icon here, the clear object from the workspace, right? Are you sure you want to remove all the object from the environment and say yes? Once you click say yes, then you said the environment is empty, right? So that's a really good starting point. And then this is important, like update all the packages in time to time. Okay, so to update the packages, you see that there's a file, plots, and packages, right? So click the packages and then click the update, and then select all, right? And then click install updates. Now this will, I mean, whenever you try to, let's say, load or install all the couple of packages, you may have an error message, right? So because of this conflict, right? So the dependencies, could be some issues between, dependencies between the packages, right? So the best way to get rid of that dependency issues, right? It's good idea to update your packages. Okay, so once you did update your package, yes, then you can just start the running this code. And by the way, this is pretty much the code that is shown in this video lecture, the 9.9, right? And I mean, if you look at the section 9.9, this video lecture, the author, right? This author, he run this code in this terminal, right? Or the console, like in the terminal, right? And actually in the console, he did not really use this script, but that's fine. It's not a big deal. Okay. So, but if you want to run the your R code using the script like this, yes, instead of running on the terminal or the console code, yes. I mean, it's either way is fine. But my preference is always use this script, right? Make the script and run and execute the script, right? That's my preference, but it's really, it does not really matter whether you use the script, or you can directly execute your code on a console or the terminal, right? So it really does not matter. But anyway, so first read CSV, and if this is the option is a file choose, right? Then yes, I know it'll take some time. Yes, it'll take some time. And then you just run, right? Oops, I think I have to wait. You know what? Let me just stop recording my lecture. I'll be back. Okay, once the update is done, now I can run the first line, right? So now it's update done, right? It'll take some time. It'll probably take a couple of minutes. Okay, but anyway, so when you read this option, right? The header is equal to true. Read these options. When you run this, it'll ask you to select the file, right? So then you can appropriately choose the file, right? Yeah, you can, for example, you should choose what? This is for the training, right? So you can it's not the scoring. So chapter 9 training, the CSV file, right? So this is what training. Okay, and then same for the score. You have to choose what? You have to choose chapter 9 data set, like scoring, right? So once you finish this, then you have to load the math library, and make sure another thing is okay, before you execute this command, and make sure that you look at your chapter 9 train, okay? And let's say if I run this, right? So good. So now you know that it's the if you look at the column name, now the there is what X second heart attack, right? The X was basically this prefix, right? The X has been added because the R does not really like the column name starting with the number. So X has been added due to this where is it? Yeah, I mean due to this option, the header is a true, right? Okay, but anyway, so yeah, just make sure that everything is fine, and then you choose the you choose the right file, right? And then make sure that you have a factor, right? Because second heart attack, that's your dependent variable, but so basically it's a good idea to make this as a factor, like yes or no, or 1 or 0, right? So that's why they're using the factor, apply the factor, and this whole thing now is your dependent variable, okay? And having said that, you can, yeah. And another thing that you have to be a little bit, be aware of, right, is the data frame, right? This function data frame. The data frame will just combine this, hard predict, right? And then with the chapter 9 score. You know what? Okay, let me just run everything. Okay, hold on. Let me just. Okay, I just ran this line, right? I chose the appropriate file. So when I run this chapter 9 view, so when I run this is my chapter 9, right? And as you know that the scoring file does not have a dependent variable, right? So that's, yeah, so since this is going to be only used for the testing, as you can see, there's no dependent variable column, right? The dependent so if you look at the chapter 9 train, you see that this, you see that the second heart attack, that's a dependent variable. But when you look at the scoring data, right, you see that there is no dependent variable, right? And I mean, it's obvious, right? Because using this scoring data set, right, you will get what predicted the output, right, which is the second heart attack, right? Okay, now let's go back to our code, and then you need to upload the library, and then let's just run this model, and then you can look at the summary, right? Oops, what happens? Chapter 9 train is not found. How come? Hold on, chapter 9. Hold on, let's see. Yep, chapter 9 train is available. Let's see, I upload it, and then chapter 9, oh, misspelled. Okay, so it has to be what? The capital, right? Chapter 9, right? Here the capital. So there's some mistake here, right? Okay, so now let's just run this mod. Okay, good. So this is the result, right? The summary result. And then you see that using the predict, right? So using this model, right? Okay, so the predict is basically you can get this the chapter 9 model. You know that this is your model, right? And then for the predict, this should be your input, right? And then chapter 9 score will be used as the input data, right? And then your type is response. So you look at the response, right? And then when you run this, let's just run this, right? And then look at the predict. You see that this is predict. It's just y variable, right? It's just a vector of y variable, as you can see, right? 0.99 means there's 99% that the patient will have a second heart attack, right? So this is like a probability, right? So now I'd like to see the class, okay? Heart predict, right? So now this is like the programming perspective. So now look at the hard predict, right? Let's just run. And you know that this is what? This is a vector, okay? The hard predict, as you can see, is a vector of numerical values, numerics. Okay, now, using the data frame, and okay, by the way, chapter 9 score, you know what? Let's take a look at the chapter 9 score. The class of chapter 9 scores, I believe, is a data frame. But let's just find out, right? In the chapter 9 score, you know the chapter 9 score is right there, right? So run. It's a data frame, right? But anyway, the data frame, this function is going to combine this hard predict, this one, you know that this is a vector, right? And then chapter 9 score is a data frame. So for the input, it can be either data frame or the vector, right? But they combine this in a column. I mean, the operation is like a columnized operation. Will be, it will be done in a columnized fashion. So that means these two things will be combined, and then they're gonna make it as a frame, right? So the hard output is when I run this, and now let's take the hard output, right? You see that it's you see that this is what? This was the for example, like this was what? This is the chapter 9 scoring, right? The data frame. And this hard predict, so this is what? This was a vector of numerics, right? So this is combined using the data frame functions, and then whole thing, right? The whole thing becomes the data frame, right? So I want you to know that that's what the data frame does, this function does, right? They combine this hard to predict, which is a vector, and then the chapter 9 score, which is a frame. They combine this in a columnized fashions, and then what? The result is going to be, is something of type frame, data frame. And then, but you know what? This output, right? This output, it's not really, still is okay, right? For age 61 and with these conditions, the likelihood that the patient will have a second heart attack is what? 0.08. It's about 8%, right? But this is not so much readable. So the improvement can be made, right? Improvements can be made by using this data frame once again. And now they're using if else, right? And then basically adding these two columns. And then finally at chapter 9, right? So what they does is, they're using if else. So this is a new column, right? Column number 1. And then this is going to be the second column, right? And then the remaining, right? So remaining is, chapter 9. So they're going to use all the columns, from the chapter 9 scores, right? So there's a column number 3, 4, 5, and 6, and etc. But anyway, let's look at the column number 1. The column number 1 is they first look at the, hard predict, right? They're going to look at the first value of the hard predict. And if that value is greater than 0.5, right? This whole expressions, we talk about this if else in our previous lecture, but this is going to be review. And the whole thing, if that is the case, the whole thing is going to be yes, right? And if the hard predict is less than 0.5, whole thing, right, is going to be no, right? Okay. So, and then if you look at the second column, right, the second column is basically the hard predict and multiply by 100, and then this is what? This is like a, it's this whole thing is going to be decimal number with, one digit. So, yeah, so this is like, it's going to be rounded, right? The round function will be applied to this value. So that's going to be your second value for the second column, right? So now when you run this, you will see two additional columns, right? And then you look at the chapter 9 scores, right? So now if you run this, let's just run this code. Yeah, let's just run the code, and then let's view hot. You see that this is what? This is like yes and no, right? Yes and no, right? The first column, and your second column is like percent, right? 8.2%, and this is like 98.6%, right? So this is your second column, and the remaining is from where? From the scoring data, right? Okay, so that's the basically output. And yeah, so basically that's the yeah, I explain about the basically in summary, right? I explain about the lectures, you know, in basically I summarize the section 9.9, okay, in this video lecture. Okay, so thank you. Oh, and then okay, so please make sure that another thing is make sure that you know every time when you start your homework assignment, and or if you want to follow my lectures, right, and make sure that you clear all the previous object and variables, and then make sure that time to time you update all your packages, right, to eliminate any dependency issues between the packages. Okay, thank you.